Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Adult Child of Dysfunction. Today, we have with us David Deane Haskell, who writes speculative science fiction, healing nonfiction, and wellness centered essays about identity, belonging, transformation, and the meeting points of technology, spirituality, trauma, and imagination. His work follows outsiders and wounded people trying to become whole without abandoning the parts of themselves that once helped them survive. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Tammy. It's amazing to be here, and I'm really grateful that we could connect from across the world. Yeah.
Yeah, you said you're
Mhm.
in China.
Japan. I'm in
Japan. I'm
just
sorry. I'm
outside of
sorry.
Tokyo. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I have been to China. I've been all over Asia, but yeah, I'm in Japan at the moment. So,
Okay. Well, nothing so exotic where I'm at. I'm in Florida, right next to Disney World.
well, I'm right next to Disneyland Tokyo, so
Well, there you
small world,
go. Okay.
right? Yeah.
Sounds good. So
Yeah.
it looks like, and I don't have a whole lot of information about you, but I did read just the names of your books and things like that. So I'm going to get right into that and jumpstart into that conversation because there's a reason you wrote a book titled what you titled your book. So talk about your
Mhm.
book to start with, and that'll get us going.
Okay, thank you. So, the book I think that we're going to focus on today is Wounded Angels, which is an inner child healing book, and um, it came out of the healing that I was already doing, that I was already working on. I had written a whole bunch of science fiction before that, four novels I published between 2013 to 2019, and I also have a new sci-fi book. So I'm really kind of melding sci-fi and like trauma healing, which doesn't sound like, I mean, in a way, it makes sense in my mind because I'm basically looking at like the past, how to heal it, what happened, essays on what's going on these days, my travels and whatnot on Substack, and then the future, right? So for me, the only fiction I write is the future. The nonfiction as I see it is all in the past. And so Wounded Angels came out of that. I was recovering from trauma, recovering from addiction, had been doing a lot of, adult child of dysfunction kind of things, including doing a lot of reading about codependence, which was, I mean, I had substance issues, but I also had people addiction issues. And it
Right.
turned out the people thing was even deeper. And so the inner child came out of that, and I was doing it, and for years, really, like 2001-ish. I wasn't really writing at the time. I was in the middle of a writer's block because I was
Mm.
trying to, heal spiritually and emotionally, and I just couldn't write. And when I was able to finally write after some of the healing was done, the book kind of wrote itself. I just started chronicling the work. So as I was doing inner child work every morning, I was also writing it. So it's sort of just like real time what healing feels like for me.
Sounds good. I mean, and inner child work and inner child healing is so transformational. I want you to give,
Yeah.
I've done it on and off. I mean, it's part of my life forever now,
Mhm.
just pulling the little pieces and everything. But tell people that are listening that have never really delved into like a program or a workbook or whatever it is, what your big picture of inner child healing is.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people aren't familiar with it, and the terminology can throw you off. There's this IFS stuff, which is internal family systems, which is a more structured kind of psychiatric evolution of inner child, really. But for me, what it really comes down to is when I have a trigger in the current moment, and trigger is also another word that is kind of overused and abused and that sort of thing. But when I say trigger, I just mean an emotional or mental reaction that seems oversized to the situation. And what I usually give as an example is if, Tammy and Joey go off to dinner and don't invite me, or even specifically say, you're not invited, I might be hurt or sad or irritated. But if I really blow up and just go, I can't believe I never get invited. People hate me. Why am I so disliked? All this kind of stuff. For me, it always goes back to some deeper root issue, something to do with trauma or, rejection, um, discard, abuse, neglect from when I was a kid. I do have, I do get in touch with like, inner child adults too, you know what I mean? But the ones that were stuck in those, scapegoated places and those shamed places, that's inner child. And for me, had a really easy one because I had an extremely traumatic day when I was 9 years old. I remember it clear as a bell. I always have, and it's in the book. It's really the crux of the structure of the book, Wounded Angels. And so for me, it was like finding the inner child was not a problem because I had a clearly traumatized, this is the worst day of my life moment to sort of go back to. So when I got sort of re traumatized, not sort of, when I got re traumatized about 40
Right.
years later, which is also in the book, I suddenly could clearly see, okay, this 9 year old was traumatized. He's having a shame attack, which he didn't understand what that was. He feels like unlikable, unlovable, impossible to recover from that. He can't make friends, and he agrees with them that he must be just unlikable and unlovable. And that kid, the traumatized kid, just got stuck there. And so that's the inner child work, finding that stuck part of us, and then kind of, just sitting with them, listening, asking questions. It depends on what they need. But I find the inner child is extremely wise. It's like I'm not here to parent them necessarily. It's more like I want to hear what they have to say about how they were not properly taken care of.
Right. And just show them that you're here now for them. Did you
Yeah.
ever, going through your work with inner child work, did you ever have a therapist or whatever, a psychiatrist or anybody tell you to do the old put the picture of yourself on a mirror and tell yourself you love yourself and look at that picture every day?
Mm. Haven't done the picture thing, no, but I have. Affirmations are, well, not so much anymore. I haven't done affirmations in a while, but they have over the years been big. Now that I mention it, I should get back to them because affirmations are awesome. And the thing about that is they're so cringe. Like when you first start it, like, oh, I love myself. You're lovable. It's like, ah, I want to throw up. This is gross, and that's trauma too. Because like
Hmm.
I wouldn't mind saying that to a 6 year old that I know, but why would I not say it to myself, especially my child self? So I don't cringe anymore. But it's kind of sweet when you meet somebody who's doing it for the first time that has been, affected so deeply, and they start cringing and oh, this is gross. I can't stand it. It's like, yeah, I know how you feel, and that's the trauma getting released because we all
Absolutely.
deserve that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember, and I did it very on the sly because nobody knew I was like going to therapy. It was like this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I remember having a picture of myself and it was inside my journal and I would open it every day and I would look at it. And you're right, it was cringe at first. Like at first, I hated that little girl. It took me a long time before I was like, huh, wow, she was
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of innocent, kind of vulnerable, kind of maybe needed more than she got, but it
Mm-hmm.
took it
Yeah.
took months of that. So if
Mm-hmm.
you were, if when I tell people, and the reason I ask you that is because I do run across a lot of people, and they'll hear someone say, "Oh, you should go do inner child work," and that's sometimes one of the first things that is suggested to them, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that stops the whole process
Yeah.
because there is
Well,
that self-loathing and that self-shame and that shame spiral, like you kind of alluded to
totally.
before.
Shame spiral, yes. I also refer to shame attack, which is actually akin to panic attack, which a lot more people can kind of more easily relate to. Even if you don't have a panic attack, you know what it would feel like if a tiger walked into the room, right? So like you can imagine a panic attack or, an actual panic. Shame attack is similar to that. It's just as horrible, just as like all encompassing and just, I got to fix this. I got to get out of here. In panic attack, you tend to run. Shame attack, more you go inward. Like
Right.
I have to hide in plain sight. And yeah, and the shame spiral too. I think that's another aspect of shame, which because you start um, putting yourself down and finding ways to feel worse and worse. And the one thing I would say, as far as people who are stopping or who, as you said, which is sad to hear, I hated that little girl. Me too. I hated that boy. A lot of them, not just the one, but the various situations. I sometimes say inner children. But yeah, if somebody feels like that, and I did, and you did, logically, if you think about it, because we're all smart people, if you think about it logically and rationally, if you met a 7-year-old kid, would you ever hate them?
Right.
You know, right? Would you see the innocence, see the damage, try to help them all you could? You know, I mean, yeah, maybe you might meet a 7-year-old that irritates you or whatever, but point being, hating ourselves is not logical. It doesn't make sense. It's a trauma thing. And and I didn't believe, I was like, no. Somebody said to me long ago, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated,
Mm,
right? And
I
I
love
and
that.
that's my life today, but it took years. And at the time, I couldn't accept that. I was like, the best I will ever do is tolerated because I'm not likable and I'm not lovable. This was only like 5, 6 years ago.
Wow.
That was my reality, and it's not true. I am likable. I am lovable. I don't cringe when I say that. Not everybody likes me, but that's okay. I don't have to be liked by everyone. I like myself. I love myself, and I'm pretty cool with the way things are going. And that took a lot of inner child work and other, whatever you want to use for modalities. I used a bunch, and it's in the back of my book. I talk about the techniques that I used and whatnot. But yeah, inner child is a huge part of that.
Yeah. And like you said, the IFS, the internal family systems, and that's like the parts
Hmm.
work but the big idea of everything, I think, and I agree 100% with you, is no matter what it is, no matter how you're walking around in the world today, if you're not walking around like you want to be, it's probably because of something that happened a long time ago. And
Yeah.
9 times, I mean, I have yet to have someone be like, "Oh yeah, I just decided, I just got these confidence issues at 56 years old." It's like, no, they came when people were telling me I was a horrible kid when I was 8. you know, when people were, when you were afraid to stand up because every time you stood up, you were told to sit down and shut up. And, I mean, those are the things. And when we talk like about affirmations and stuff, I try to make it very blatantly clear to people, that is the way you act, like you said, when you overreact, or those are the big things. And I try to tell people, so I'll say it to myself sometimes. I'll snap, and you used a great example about somebody not inviting you somewhere, where it might just be
Hmm.
that it was just them making plans, but all of a sudden you go into this, it's me, they don't like me, I'm not likable, and you start down this road where at the end of the day, it's because of what was done to you when you were little. And I try to explain to people, when you were little, everything is big.
Hmm.
So even if you can trace it back to that exact moment, now as an adult, you're like, wow. I mean, I'm not saying in your case, but in some cases, people are like,
Hmm.
wow, that didn't seem like that big of a deal. And I'm like, but when you were 5, that's huge.
Sure.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
no, absolutely true. And it's, I see that too when I talk to others, because I have, now that I look back, I had some extreme trauma. My mom passed away when I was 4. This is
Mm,
traumatic. Even before that point, my parents divorced when I was like 1. She remarried and we moved several times. She was mentally unwell. And, these kinds of things, even without her passing away, would have been quite traumatic. And so,
right.
and then my dad was alcoholic. So it's kind of easy to say, okay, yeah, trauma. But then other people say, well, my story wasn't that bad. It's this or that. Sometimes people just don't see it until later. But then other times, I think, as you say, everybody's experience is their own profound experience, and some people had it way worse than me. I think, I refer to like, the kids in a war zone, that kind of thing. Obviously, there's a range of things, but if you were hurt, you were hurt. If you were wounded, you were wounded, and caregivers can wound with just words
Oh,
and can
absolutely.
really, yeah. And my dad, um, who I did make peace with him, and he read my book. He's in my book, and
Oh,
I
wow.
gave it to him before I published it. It hurt him. He felt badly about it, but I told my truth, and yeah, he was doing the best he could, but he was alcoholic and he was doing harm. I understand this because I was doing the best I could with my daughter. I'm alcoholic and I did harm. So I was
Right.
able to see both sides of that. And then when I was able to quit the substances and quit the codependency and all that stuff, I was able to start repairing things with my daughter, with together with her help. She was willing and she tried. I love her. We had lunch together yesterday. She's 22 years old, so
Oh,
from 14 to 22, things were, could be repaired. But in any case, harm was done. I didn't want to, I didn't mean to, but I did harm to her. My dad did harm to me, whether he meant to or not, and I don't believe that he meant to. But
Well,
you could not mean to hit somebody with your car, and it still hurts them. It still does harm.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily, and that's one of the hardest things with the alcoholism too, is that, when
Hmm.
people talk about different addictions and different kinds of dysfunction and different traumas and different things. And so
Hmm.
often I look back like at my parents and 100%, I'm at peace with it now. Like I was at peace with my father. I said my father never did anything wrong. Like he never hit me. He never physically abused me. He never did any of that. But at the same
Hmm.
time, he wasn't emotionally there enough to do anything right, to protect me,
Right.
to be there for me. He
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
with that, again, I can look back at it now and there's no emotional, energetic charge of anger behind it,
Hmm.
but it took a long time.
Yeah.
It took a long time. But I
And there is
think,
anger. Yeah.
yeah.
There is, and there, those emotions, we have to go through them too. Because I really, I used to say early on in the healing process, there was three people that I hated more than anyone: my dad, myself, and God.
Mm,
Right. And like literally, I couldn't pick between those three. My dad was probably third. And then me and God were tied for first, something like that.
mm,
And that had to do with why did you let my mom die? That's like that's how do you make peace with that? Well, everybody has their own spiritual journey too.
right.
But I was angry, hateful, spiteful, resentful, all that, whatever. And I felt those emotions. I allowed myself to feel it, and also did some, a lot of writing work on it. There's so much help out there if
Yeah.
people are ready to give it a try. So yeah,
And it's also, having walked both sides of it, you have a much more compassionate view of it too, because you can
I
see,
do,
like,
I do.
you
Hmm.
really you have to. I mean, you've walked both sides. You've been the
Yeah.
the person that had the alcoholic parent, and you've been the alcoholic parent. So
Yep.
you can walk
Yeah.
both sides. And I think that is such a good place to come from when you're helping people, because so much, even though we try not to, there's still that stigma and there's that judgment and there's that just not
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
what that's like. And
Sure.
so tell us about when you said you went through a pretty profound spiritual journey. I mean, if
Hmm. Yeah.
your father and God, you hated the most out of three beings in the world, that
Hmm.
had to have been a
Hmm.
pretty intense journey to come out of that.
Absolutely. And again, it wasn't fast. I'm really, I encourage people to take it slow and realize, like, there's a lot of quick fix stuff out there on the internet and podcasts and all this. Just let it go and do a minute of affirmations and you're going to be a millionaire or whatever. They go, and it's like, that wasn't my story. And even 2 years into, or almost 2 years after quitting all substances, well, not coffee, but other substances, um, I still hadn't made peace with the higher power thing, God, whatnot. And I used to call myself an atheist, but I think I never was. I think I just hated, God. And so, every again, I'm not gonna get too deeply into my resolutions, but I did a reflection and prayer, meditation, exercise, grounding, these things over, over a course of months and years led me to some personal conclusions about what I think that whole thing is all about. And, why I don't believe God does mean things or terrible things for me. But the spiritual awakening came. It was June 2020. I wrote, it's on my Substack. I wrote about it
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And it came out of meditation. I started doing meditation for real for a while. And at first I got these really dark thoughts. The world is horrible. Everything's horrible. I'm horrible, And then over a couple of days, I continued meditating. That stuff sort of flushed itself out. And I was on a beach not far from here. Um, and I had a sudden thought, which was, I should be dead. Now, this was age 50. I had actively worked hard to harm myself for decades. I was 100 pounds overweight, reckless stuff all the time, all kinds of, I should have died from liver failure or lung cancer. I was a heavy smoker. I did reckless things like, just you name it, reckless things.
Hmm.
And so I, it's just luck or whatever you want to call it that I was alive, and I was sitting on that beach and suddenly the sky seemed much bigger and the ocean seemed much bigger. And I was like, wow. And I got this sense of presence, which
Mm.
hasn't ever really left me. It comes and goes in intensity, but it's a personal feeling. I don't claim any knowledge or that anybody should agree with me. But for me, that just changed things. But I still kind of hated the guy. So it was like there was still a lot of work to be done there. And my understanding of God is kind of I can just be like, you jerk, what's wrong with you? Why'd you do this to me today? I can talk to him however I want because I'm the child of creation, whatever you want to call it. I don't worry about groveling.
Right. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, and it's funny how people go through that different thing. I remember because people always said, "Well, did you always believe in God?" Like one time my daughter, I remember her said to me, she gave me like this little cross. And I was like, "Man, we haven't gone to church in so long and like why do you think that would be a symbol that would represent me?" And she's like, "Cuz you are the most spiritual person I know." But you don't, and it's like in your own
Mm,
way. But I can
right.
remember when I was a little kid, whenever I would get scared, and I can several times throughout my life, I can remember like hiding in certain places and being like asking like who's going to come save me kind of thing. And it was so
Mm,
funny because like you said, you kind of get this presence thing. And I remember
right.
hearing that like Tammy, Tammy, Tammy kind of thing. And literally for until I was about 25 years old, I was like, you're mocking me. Are you kidding me? Like it
Hmm.
was like I could picture him like shaking his head being like give me a break, and I was mad at that point, and it wasn't until I was 26 when I was getting ready to have my first kid that all of a sudden I was like, "Huh." It was like one day I just heard it differently. Like one day I
Hmm.
heard him being like, "You're going to save you. Like me, you, we're together, we got this" kind of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
that was, everybody has their moment like but I mean,
Well, I not to get too, I don't want to be dark about it, but not everybody has their moment though. Some people take this pain into the grave, which I've
Oh no,
seen, and
no,
that's a
I'm
bad
saying
thing.
that
But
when people have that
when,
awakening or
yeah,
whatever you want to
when
call
they
it,
do,
it's
when they do,
usually
yes,
a
yes.
a moment. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did not to, and also not to contradict either. I love what you're saying. I'm hanging on every word. I had the trauma and addiction can really. This is why I want to. If anybody's struggling, don't give up hope. Give a
yeah,
try to some stuff because yeah, it's when you if you do get there, it's beautiful and it starts to heal the stuff that was horrible.
yeah.
But yeah, it is. I do know some people who didn't get there, and that's also tragic. I lost a cousin to alcohol. He was 29 years old,
Wow.
and you know, so I sort of, as I say, I'm not looking to switch it to the dark side, but
Oh
it's
no,
it's
no, no.
very it's
That's I
grave.
mean,
It's really you serious. This stuff is so serious, and it's beautiful. I encourage people to find their own way that the stuff that we're talking about here,
yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely.
And it's whatever you need to get you there. It's you know,
Hmm.
it's I've said to people, if you don't want to do it for you, do it for your children, do it for, whatever, like
Hmm.
whatever gets you there, but you have to want to do it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. When you are in there, you have to want to. Something inside you has
Hmm.
got to want to either have a better life or just live.
Hmm.
Um,
I
because
think, yeah, I totally agree with you. And if you're out there and trying to figure out how to do it, or if you feel like I don't want to, or I'm not worth it, or I can't, um, for me, I think the question is, am I in enough pain yet? Because to me, it's like, sometimes people said, oh, you're courageous for quitting drinking or whatever. I don't see it as courage necessarily, but more like the pain just got so much that I had no choice. Like, when you hit that bottom, it's there, you'll do anything, right? But the thing is, people don't have to wait for that.
right,
I had to wait for that twice because it was two bottoms because codependency was a whole different thing.
right,
And that was the start of the inner child work. But have you been in enough pain? Are you tired of it yet? Are you ready to, want to try something else, just to try to ease the pain? That to me is the thing, because sometimes you can be so self-loathing. I was like, no, no, I'm not worth it. Nobody thinks I am, and neither do I. But I am in a lot of pain. So it's
Right.
like if you're in so much pain that you have to go to the doctor, that kind of thing, and there's help.
And I try to tell I tell everybody it's you are worth it. And even like I
Yeah.
said, if you have children, if you have a
Hmm.
parents that love you, whatever it is, you're
Mm.
worth it. And it's a hard it's really really hard when you're that deep and you're just feeling like you're
Hard to
not.
hear.
And
Yeah.
sometimes even
Hmm.
you, a lot of time, most of the time, actually, it's not even a thing that you might consciously be aware of. It's, a lot of the people
Hmm.
that I talk to that are just like, I don't understand why I'm just not happy or why I just feel like when I walk in a room, everybody's looking at me. And it's all that subconscious. It's all that. And they'll kind of go back to that. Well, I never had this big trauma. Nobody ever told me I was hated. Nobody ever did. That doesn't matter. Like you said,
Hmm.
if you were hurt and the way I look at it is if something happened at some point along the way and it changed the way you look at the world and it changed the way
Hmm.
you look at yourself, then it was trauma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trauma is not definable.
No, absolutely
No.
not. I use an example all the time of one of the people that I work with, and she literally just had this just unshakable feeling that she was not lovable by her mother, and her mother told her she
Mm.
loved her all the time, and we literally like kind of went back over several months, and finally
Mm.
one day we're talking and she goes, I remember. And I was like, what? She goes, when I was in first grade, my mother got a new job and she was late 3 days in a row to pick me up because they were getting the schedules right. And she was at a
Hmm.
sleepover in front of 15 of her friends. And the mom came down to say, I love you girls. And the little girl turned around and looked at her and said, your mom must not love you because she doesn't come to school to pick you up on time.
Oh no.
And I literally was like,
Mm.
but bing. And I said, that had the same effect on her as my mother, who told me she hated me every day. It's just how
That's
what you hear. And like I said, when you're little, everything is big.
yeah, absolutely. And the caregivers, they're gods, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if you think about it like that. And yeah, and gods can't do wrong. So
exactly.
must be my fault. Yeah, that again, that's also what informed my God concept, the higher power concept, was like, that it's yeah, it's I lost my train of thought on that. I was like,
Oh, no, that's
but
okay.
yeah.
But no, it is true. And as far as like the higher power, and if you're out there listening and you're like, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, I,
Hmm.
it's okay. But what I can tell you might help sometimes is just believe that there's something, if you can't handle it or you're not feeling like you can handle it. I told somebody the other day, I don't care if it's the frog statue in your front yard. If you think somebody else can handle it or something else can handle it, surrender to that. Surrender to that because it just takes a little of the burden off. So whether it's the universe or the Buddha or God or Allah or the frog
Hmm.
statue in your front yard, just knowing that you don't have to handle everything sometimes just takes a little of the stress away.
Mm, absolutely. And also, I would add that for me, it was a long time, that process to get to a spiritual place. But even before that, what I started with, and I was helped with this by people who were very kind and loving. I started with gratitude,
Hmm.
and it was like, well, what do I have to be grateful for? Oh, well, it's kind of a nice day today, Oh, that puppy's kind of cute, I'm grateful that there's food in the refrigerator. I'm not gonna starve today. These kinds of things, very simple, and so that started me on a certain path, and it also kind of started to bring me back to myself. When I started to feel grateful for things, I started to be okay being in my own skin, because like my brain wasn't constantly doing negative, it was doing some positive. It's hard to hang out with a negative person, right?
Right.
So if you're negative by yourself, then you don't want to hang out with yourself. And if you can't be quiet and spend time with yourself, then you're in a place where you're not going to start getting to those spiritual experiences.
Right.
And
And I,
then, so from there, sorry to, but from there, I also encourage like whatever spirituality means, like, the meditation or reflection, even inner child work too, I think is a very spiritual thing. So, I think exploration is a big key.
Yeah. Just being curious and not being so judgmental when you have those thoughts. Just be curious about
Yeah.
them and explore, like you said, explore them instead of judging them.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned the fact of the gratitude. And I always say that in the first thing in the morning, because it's very hard to wake up and, if you wake up, and how many of us do it? I mean, everybody I talk to, I
Hmm.
always say, like, every time I talk to someone, I'm like, a scale of 1 to 10, what was your stress level when you woke up? And I would say out of the 300 people that I asked just to kind of get a gauge, they were between 7 and 9. I'm like, that is
Wow.
terrible. That is
Mm.
terrible. Like, wake up and it's like you feel your body. Where are you feeling it? Oh, it feels like there's an elephant on my chest. It's like, okay, well, just slow that down before you do anything. Just find 5 things, 5 quick things to be grateful for, because it just
Hmm.
takes you away from that, and then just tell yourself, like you said, the affirmations. And I'm a very big fan of, if you're going to do an affirmation, you can't just say it. You have to feel it. And I truly believe that. And that is the hardest thing, because I feel like sometimes for me, there used to be very empty affirmations. Like,
Hmm.
I am lovable, I am adorable, I am blah, 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 blah. And then I would look in the mirror and be like, ugh. So, but
Hmm.
you have to feel it in your body. So I tell people, when you're laying there and you wake up in the morning and you say, thank you, God, for another day, or just thank you for another day, feel grateful, feel it, so that because your mind will start to actually believe that. And then
Hmm.
the universe will give you more things to be grateful for. That's just, to me, how it works. So,
Wonderful.
love it. So, but anyway, so you've got your books. Tell us, what else do you do? Tell us about that.
What else do I do? I do a number of things. Can you hang on for 1 second, if you don't mind? So sorry about that. My housemate just walked in the door.
No, you're fine.
Um, okay. Hopefully we can edit that out. But what
Yeah, I'll
else do
clip
I
it
do?
out.
Let's see. Um, I'm a writer, so this
Okay.
is the main thing. I've been working on my publishing business, and on the fiction and the nonfiction side. I've got 6 books for sale, and so I'm sort of a
Nice.
one-man band. I'm doing doing the indie publishing thing, and there's a lot of work behind that. Maintaining the website, doing outreaches, and these kinds of things. I'm also a teacher. I teach English, I teach drums, and I'm also a professional drummer. I did a bunch
Oh,
of coaching clinics in Indonesia last year, which was a whole lot of fun. And so, if you go on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of that side of things. So it's kind of a multifaceted life right now.
sounds amazing. Sounds absolutely. And you
Yeah.
said you have 6 books and probably will have 10 by the end of the year, or 27.
There'll be 2 more by the end of the year. Actually,
Nice.
I've got a follow up to Wounded Angels coming out, the second Inner Child book, which is called Inner Child Unleashed.
Okay.
And there's also a sci-fi epic coming out soon. So yeah,
I
by
want
the end of
to.
the year, I'll have 8, hopefully, if I can get that all done. Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how you blended in the sci-fi with the inner child type psychology.
It,
I'm really actually very
yeah,
intrigued with
it's
that. So I've got
melding
to
more
check
and
that out.
more. Yeah, it's definitely melding
Absolutely.
more and more. So yeah.
And if people want to work with you, find out more about you, where do they go? What's the best place?
My website, daviddeanehaskell.com, and the middle name is spelled with an E, as we were talking about that before the recording. And it's, yeah, daviddeanehaskell.com. I go by my full name for a reason, actually. There's another writer out there, a biologist named David Haskell, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winner and whatnot. So, like, if you Google David Haskell, you won't find me. But if you Google David Deane Haskell, I come right up. So
Okay.
that's the easiest way to find me. Yep. Yep.
Perfect. And I will put that in the show notes. If anybody's driving, you don't have to write it down. It'll be in there to clickable links so you can get right to it and check out all his books and
Hmm.
everything. But
Hmm.
thank you so much for coming on, first of all. But you are not
Thank you.
off the hook, because you have so much wisdom for people and you've had so many experiences. So if you had to
Mm.
give the listeners one big general idea or words of wisdom, what would it be today?
Hmm. Don't give up on yourself. That's don't give up on yourself. That's, you're worth it. This sounds cheesy maybe, but it's these things, again, I say, if you think about it logically, like that, like if you look back and you hate the kid that you were when you were 11, think about if you were met another 11-year-old who was, a similar kid, would you hate them? So logically speaking, it doesn't make sense. So, okay, well then let's get to the bottom of why this doesn't make sense. And there's trauma there, there's pain there, there's harm there, wounds. So yeah, don't give up on yourself. It's worth looking into, and you can get better. Was if I could get better, anyone could.
Mm. Well, you look like you're doing great, so kudos to
Thank you.
you.
You
Long
too. Thank
journey,
you
and
so
it's
much. Mm-hmm.
always a journey, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely every step forward that you take is so worth it. So
It's
worth it.
amazing.
So
Thank you so
thank
much,
you
Tammy.
again.
This is amazing.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on. And for everybody else out there listening, you heard him. Do not give up on yourself. Know that you are worthy. You are absolutely amazing. You are loved. You are God's child and you are meant to be here. And you're also deserving of whatever good things you want. So whatever you got to do, whatever help you need, whatever support you need, find the people. They're out there. I'm out here. David's out here. And come find the support and come get the support and know that again, you are so loved. And you all have a blessed week and we will see you back. Bye.